We're going to keep rolling with the Community Development Committee with a discussion from the Department of Public Works regarding the redesign of certain bike lanes in Algiers. So at this time, you can start the presentation.
Okay. Good afternoon, Councilmember King, Council. My name is Sarah McLaughlin-Porteous. I'm the Chief of Staff for Infrastructure and Operations, and I'm joined by Jennifer Ruley, who's the Manager for the Mobility and Safety Division in the Department of Public Works. Both Jennifer and I have worked in some capacity through the planning, design, and construction of the Algiers Bike Network, so we are very pleased with the opportunity to be here today to share with you some updates. We've been asked to respond to what we've done to address both community concerns around the design of the bike lanes in Algiers, and in particular on MacArthur and Newton, on the completed segments there. I do want to be clear that the Department of Public Works has come to the table to be responsive to concerns that we've heard from both residents and the council, and we have made adjustments to the design on those segments, and Jennifer's going to go into a little bit more detail on what those design modifications have been. It's important that we find a balance in terms of being able to incorporate design changes, but also without sacrificing the safety and integrity of the intended design. Lastly, I just want to mention that bike lanes are intended to improve safety for all users of the roadway, for cyclists, for drivers, and for pedestrians alike. So without further ado, I'm going to ask Jennifer to begin the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Good afternoon. So this presentation is a follow-up to our earlier presentation in March of this year. We will not repeat most of that presentation, and we encourage anyone who needs information from the earlier presentation to consult. I believe it's on the City Council website. Next slide. So, that's it. We are seeing an alarming trend toward more traffic fatalities, both nationally and locally. We heard earlier about the increase in violence in the community. This also applies to traffic violence. Between 2020 and 2021, traffic fatalities are up, and this includes an increase in pedestrian casualties, up 13%, and bicyclist casualties, up 5%. As we stated in our earlier presentation, the work in Algiers is part of a new wave of roadway safety and mobility initiatives. They are designed to improve our community. While most people see bike lanes, each project incorporates proven road safety countermeasures that have been shown to increase safety for all roadway users. These are roadway safety designs that are increasingly being implemented throughout North America and particularly U.S. cities. Next slide. This information was presented by Jeannie Donovan, the Deputy Director of the New Orleans Health Department in our last presentation. She oversees transportation safety and active transportation work in the department. Constructing complete streets, including protected bicycle lanes, is one of the most effective interventions that we can use to improve public health and the safety in the transportation realm. We know that the city is still in the early stages of developing our citywide network of bike lanes and complete streets. But we know that data from other cities that as we build our network out, residents will feel more confident in their ability to use these networks, and ridership will continue to increase. This results in a downstream of public health and safety benefits that will undoubtedly come from our investment in that network. And on this slide, you can see the crash data for a period of time in Algiers specifically. Slide. So everyday people who are going to work, shopping, exercising, and going to school use these facilities. I show some examples here of people we've seen using the facilities. There are people who travel less in large groups, like you see lycra-clad recreational cyclists, sometimes going down Woodland Drive or on the levee, places like that, or even social rides. Because these people travel alone or maybe with another rider, they're not as visible to other roadway users. Manual counts taken by the University of New Orleans in December 2019, this was prior to these bike lane improvements, indicate that on any given day, there are between 55 and 155 bicyclists per day using the bike lanes on MacArthur near Holiday. 2 months ago, city staff observed 6 bicyclists using the bike lanes within 20 minutes on Newton Street. And 2 weeks ago, we observed 9 bicyclists within less than 2 hours using the bike lanes on MacArthur at Holiday. According to the U.S. Department of Transportation's Safer Streets Priority Finder, this is a tool that helps local governments identify unsafe roadways. The societal cost of not addressing roadway safety through interventions like complete streets is something we cannot ignore. For example, according to the tool, keeping MacArthur and Newton as they were designed before the 2021 design changes were implemented, i.e. the protected bike lanes, would result in an average cost per year of $1.1 million just for the bicyclists and pedestrian deaths and injuries. This does not include injuries to people in cars and crashes, damages like that. This is harm caused to the community, such as loss of life, injuries, insurance, medical costs, loss of employment, and other factors. New Orleans began work on complete streets and improving the bikeway network more deliberately nearly 20 years ago. This hard work resulted in new roadway features that New Orleanians could only experience in other cities up until that time. Crosswalks, bike lanes, and traffic calming are features that support quality of life. This is why DPW receives numerous requests for these roadway features on a weekly basis. In 2019, the City Council passed Resolution 19-95, which called on the city to expedite safety improvements such as protected bike lanes. The DPW focused on improving our design standards based on recognized national guidance. The overall result was to shift toward bike lanes with more horizontal and vertical elements between them and the moving cars. These are otherwise referred to as protected bike lanes. Most city collector and arterial roadways in New Orleans have sufficient speeds and traffic volumes to qualify for protected bike lanes, as I'm showing in this chart, which assists us in deciding what goes where. So this is the design criteria for newer bike lanes in New Orleans, and roadway designs that preceded this guidance consist of more shared lanes and conventional bike lanes with no vertical and horizontal separation. Next slide. So focusing on the work that the city did recently in Algiers, here's a look at the status of recent bikeway projects. This does not reflect all bikeways in Algiers, but the ones that were designed since 2019. The 2 bikeways that received the most interest were MacArthur Boulevard, and I'll talk about Newton Street next. Here, I'm talking about some of the adjustments that the Department of Public Works made in response to on-site evaluations by city staff. Adjustments were also made to issues and concerns raised by residents via email, phone calls, and meetings. We reduced the number of flex posts and flex posts at specific intersections to adjust for large vehicles and how they need to turn. We also converted a protected bike lane to a conventional bike lane in the case of a short segment between Algiers Plaza and Cable Drive. And this was due to the lack of parking there and driveway frequency, and some other factors. And we have received no complaints from citizens since design adjustments were completed. I repeat, we received no complaints since these design changes were completed. The next slide. This is showing some adjustments we made on Newton Street in summer of 2022. These adjustments were in response to on-site evaluations by city staff, and we met with Councilmember King on-site. We moved flex posts closer to the curb to allow for more room for parking. This allows ingress and egress into the parking spaces and as well as into and out of doors on the cars. We replaced missing and damaged flex posts, and again, on this particular segment, we've received no citizen complaints since the design adjustments were completed this year. No citizen complaints. In the next slide, you can see pictures of other recent Algiers bikeways. These include Wall Boulevard protected bike lanes, a levee-type top bike path extension between Federal City and the Algiers Chalmette Ferry, and also Holiday Drive. Next slide. We're showing Garden Oaks Drive, which is a protected bike lane, Berman Highway, which is a protected bike lane, and a portion of Newton Street.
Okay, so wanted to spend just a minute talking about what our public engagement will look like going forward. One of the lessons we learned from earlier on in the program is that we've got to have a dedicated mobility and safety outreach manager, which we do now have on staff, and that's David Lee Simmons, who's here in the audience with us today. Our outreach includes direct engagement with neighborhood associations. Also, obviously we continue to work closely alongside the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Engagement and other stakeholders. We are planning to have another pre-construction community meeting for the initial build bikeways on the remaining corridors that Jennifer mentioned. That's Upper Holiday, West Bend Parkway, Mardi Gras Boulevard, and Florence Drive, in order to provide information about specific design adjustments. And to publicize those meetings, we will reach out through all the neighborhood associations. We will send postcard mailers to residents along those corridors and within 2 blocks of those corridors, as we always do. And then we'll continue to utilize the roadwork NOLA tools that they have in place, including the hotline, 504-658-ROAD, and then dedicated email throughout the implementation process to respond to resident concerns and questions.
So there are some future monitoring we'll be doing on these bikeways, consistent with all of the bikeways that we've implemented. And this includes reviewing crash trends. So our preliminary data shows that the designs are working and that unlike other parts of the city, these designs have helped to stem the number of traffic injuries and fatalities. We're also addressing maintenance issues, such as striping, flex posts, and roadway repairs. I'm showing a picture of our sweeper machine on Garden Oaks Drive. We're also reviewing traffic volumes for all modes to see how those trends may change. And then we're following up on any future residents' concerns directly through our community outreach specialists.
So, well, that concludes the slides that we have. I do want to emphasize that as we continue our build out of the network in Algiers and across the city, we will continue to evaluate and assess everything through the implementation process, and we are willing to make changes as needed, as we've done and demonstrated on MacArthur and Newton. With that, we're happy to take your questions.
All right. So I have a couple questions. I don't know if any council members have questions, but I'll start. You can go back to the slide showing a number of accidents from 2014 to 2018. All right. So that's a 5-year gap, 5-year total. And you have 2,088 total crashes, correct?
In that, 2014 to 2018.
And out of that 2,088, 74 were pedestrian and cyclists. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. Okay. So you have 27 cyclists crashes in 5 years in Algiers. That's 15 a year, and that's 1.2 a month. Out of that, do you know where the accidents happened? Did it happen on Newton and or MacArthur?
This is all of Algiers, but yes, some of them did occur on those two streets.
Okay, but you can't tell me how many out of that one a month happened on Newton and MacArthur, where the bike lanes are.
I don't have that information in front of me right now.
We can get it for you.
Okay. Can you tell me out of that 1.2 a month, council members, of that 1.2 a month, 15 a year, how many were the cyclists negligent? Can you tell me that? The cause of the accident.
You may have to consult the police on that. We have certain amounts of records on you have to go into each record of the police officers.
It just
report.
seems a bit disingenuous when you say these are the facts, these are the stats, but have no facts to back them up. So you're trying to paint this picture as if these streets are inherently dangerous, but you can't tell me where the accidents happen and what's the cause of the accidents. Maybe you can tell me this. How many fatalities have been caused in Algiers and on unprotected bike lanes?
Again, I would have to look at the data. We weren't prepared to answer
I can
that
tell
question
you,
today.
One. And do you know out of that one, if the cyclist had he or she lived, would they have been cited for a ticket? The
I don't know the answer to that.
The answer is yes. They were going the wrong way at night, possibly inebriated. So, you can't tell me where it happened, how many on these two streets, and how they happened. So this is the part of the problem that the people in Algiers have, because they get stats thrown at them that are incomplete and that are misleading. So, go ahead.
We're not trying to mislead anybody with this data. This is simply data about the total number of crashes.
It's a bit incomplete. Right. I'm not.
We can add a lot more information and present that to you if that's what you want.
No.
But
Well-
unfortunately, there's a lot of carnage on our streets, and it's not pretty.
A lot of carnage on the streets related to bikes in Algiers. Do you have those stats? You just said there's a lot.
Councilmember, are you asking for more data?
You just stated there's a lot of carnage on the streets in Algiers related to bicycles, and I'm asking you to give me proof of that carnage. Can you do that?
Yes, we can. And there's some numbers right here on the slide.
That you can't give me complete answers to. Where did it happen? How many were on the streets that we're asking about? We're asking about two streets that's totals 2.2 miles. So another thing,
Excuse me, some of this information is on our website on fact sheets, so anyone can go check out those fact sheets.
okay, this is not going to be a
each
conference.
street.
This is not going to be a. I don't want to make this confrontational. All right, I want to keep this civil as possible. So this conversation has been kind of taken over by false information. I had someone call me and say, well, why are you trying to take out bike lanes out the city? I said, that's not the case. Well, a certain neighborhood, a certain bicycle group told me they're trying to take out bicycles. 8 minutes, person talked about 20 minutes, and she realized that we're talking about two streets in Algiers on MacArthur, which is 1.2 miles, and on Newton Street, which is 0.6 miles. I'm sorry. MacArthur is a little bit longer than that, but it's like 1.6 miles. It's 1.6 miles at Newton Street, which is 0.6 miles. So out of 75 miles of total biking infrastructure in the city, we're talking about 2.2 miles. So on those 2.2 miles, let's talk about MacArthur. Does anyone live on or near MacArthur that was in charge of installing these bike lanes or making the decision on the design of the bike lanes?
We had community meetings.
I keep hearing that, but no one seems to have attended these community meetings. So can you give me a sign-in sheet of the community meetings, where they were held? Because I know one was held at the Arthur Mundy Center, which is nowhere near MacArthur. That's like having a meeting in the French Quarter for a situation in Lower 9.
Councilmember King, I can assure you we had a number of community meetings. It wasn't just one.
Right.
We had definitely had one at the Algiers Library and I think a few other locations in Algiers, and we can get you those. I can't commit. I think we can probably get you the sign-in sheets. I'm going to look for those and try to get them to you. But they were very well attended. It was not just one meeting in Algiers.
Okay. Did you want to discuss safety with the fire department about accessing houses in case there was a fire?
Yes.
What was their response?
Their response was that they've had a chance to look at the designs in the physical space, and we let them know we were going to make some adjustments, like at T intersections, and that sort of thing, and they felt comfortable with the response that we were providing, and they had no further comments.
Okay. Can you go back to that Newton Street picture? With the white infinity right there. So across the street with the blue tarps, I can personally tell you that there has been more trash on the bike lanes than bicyclists, because I have picked up the trash twice. And you go out there today, there's still trash because the person someone keeps putting trash in the bike lanes. So I just kind of, and for bike lanes across Algiers, they're filled with more trash than bicyclists. Someone who lives in Algiers, who drives MacArthur and Newton every day, and rarely do I see bicyclists. We met with Public Works, and we saw in 1 hour, I think he was at the meeting, one person on a bike in 1 hour on Newton Street. Met with another member of Public Works and someone who was getting paid to expand the bike lanes. And this person told me, this makes no sense, but I'll keep taking y'all money to expand these bike lanes. I haven't seen one person out here. So this is somebody that we're paying to do a job, and he is saying this makes no sense, but he'll keep taking the money because he hasn't seen one bicyclist at all. So I understand that there are people who bike, who want bike lanes. I'm just asking that we listen to the people who are most affected, the people who live and who have businesses that are being affected in a negative way due to the bike lanes that, quite frankly, overwhelmingly are not desired in Algiers. So this is not about Esplanade, St. Claude, East Bank, Lakeview, Mid-City, MLK. There's people saying that I'm trying to take away bike lanes in Gentilly. It's not even my district. We're talking about 2.2 miles, MacArthur and Newton Street. That's it. Not Wall Boulevard, that's rarely used. Not Berman, that's rarely used. Not any of these other streets that's rarely used. We're talking about two streets. So with that being said, we'll take some public comment. We do have another meeting. Short-term rentals that'll be interesting, so I don't want to take up too much time on this. So we'll go to first Troy Lynn Sledge of 8271 Sumner Street in Algiers, which is about a block off of Newton Street.
Okay, I know this meeting was about, what street was that? What street are y'all were talking about?
Ms. Sledge, speaking to the mic, please.
No, I said, I know this was about another street, but
It's MacArthur and Newton.
I know MacArthur and Newton. What I'm speaking on, Sumner and Newton. The reality is that nobody is peddling on Newton. And it's bad for the businesses that's from Berman to Whitney. The picture you have up there is further down past Whitney, so that doesn't apply. But there's a lot of businesses from Berman to Whitney. You see no one peddling. There's a bike group that comes out every Friday with the lights and everything, but they ride in the street. There was a 3-car accident about 2 or 3 months ago that sat there almost about 2 months until we finally got 2 cars to leave, and 1 car is still sitting there. But as Mr. Freddie King mentioned, there's a lot of trash. I live on Sumner. I'm very active in the community, and I just think it's not needed. Also, what else I wanted to say? That's it.
Ms.
But,
Sledge.
It's just a waste of
Ms. Sledge.
Waste of money.
Have you ever been contacted by anybody about the bike lanes?
No.
Thank you, Ms. Sledge. Yeah, Mr. Belgium, thank you.
And I understand Christian Palmer was the one who started this because there was a meeting and I wasn't interested in it when she was trying to initiate this. But it's a waste of time. It's accident prone. They've had accidents. The people have trouble putting their trash cans out, taking them in. So it's just it's a haphazard.
Thank you, Ms. Sledge. Mr. Belden Baptiste.
Good afternoon, City Council.
Good afternoon, Mr. Baptiste.
Did the other two council members leave? If they're not here, that's all right. But I wanted to address the whole council. Mr. Baptiste is here live today. I heard two council members tried to bully me and tried to talk to the Control administration about me, right? But I'm here today. Yes, I did recall the mayor, but the two councilmen that had something to say, I ain't gonna call your name, but I'm here. You're a coward if you can't say it now. Talk about me to my face, because I fight for this city hard. And I stand for this city hard. And what I want those two council members to know, I hold everybody accountable. And guess what? If you're not doing your job, I will be recalling you next. But what I want you to know, we got a mayor that don't care about a city. We got black boys dying every day in the community. We got potholes. We got Garden Plaza was right here, been crying for 40 years for their money. We got Lincoln Beach that's struggling. We had the people on the New Orleans East last night talking about blight. So the nerve of two councilmen to talk about me. I'm here right now saying, let's debate. Look, if you're with the mayor and you got something to say about Mr. Baptiste, won't you go on the news? Let's go on the Oliver Thomas show. I know you probably can't do it, Oliver, but let's have a debate if you want to debate.
I would love those ratings. I would love those ratings.
And I'm here live. So
Let's do
don't
it.
be talking that talk behind my back. Instead of you trying to bully me, be worrying about your districts, worrying about what's going on in the city. And if you're satisfied with the way the city going, don't sign the recall petition. But when people are trying to bully me, threaten me, telling me they're going to hurt my life, trying to get my mama evicted, I don't give a care, because I'm Mr. Belden Baptiste, Noonie man, and I'm not a sellout. But you two councilmen, I ain't going to call you out, but Mr. Baptiste is here. Do anybody got anything to say? Because listen, if you're not doing your job, you need to be recalled. There's a couple of state reps I'm about to recall. I'm coming for you because we have gave y'all a chance to do the job. And I'm not saying you're not, but do your job, because we are the taxpayers. We pay for y'all jobs. We pay for y'all to ride around in the SUVs. And if some of y'all eating on the credit cards, we pay for that too. If you're taking a trip, we pay. Listen, Mr. Baptiste, and I'm going to be real quick, Freddie, because I know you got to get on, so I don't want nobody to say you was favoritism. But at the end of the day, I fight for everybody. And you might don't disagree. I might don't agree with you, but then you tell me, hey, no, bro, we disagree. That's how you feel. But listen, Mr. Baptiste worked 24/7. Now, sometimes I do get a little sleep, but they have people homeless that call me 12 o'clock. I put shoes, clothes on their back. So listen, to you two council members that have something to say, listen, Freddie, just give me 1 minute. I'm going to sit at the mic 1 minute. And if you got something to say, say it.
I'm starting.
If you don't say nothing.
Started.
Oh, huh?
You got 55 seconds.
Well, I'm just standing here. So
Okay.
I just want to see if the two council members got something to say. Now we talking about bike lanes. Some people for it, some against. You know, I'm saying council vote with your heart on the bike lanes, whatever. But I want those two council members to talk up, because I'm going to tell you, you're going to be exposed, and guess what? Next week, your recall might be coming.
Thank you, Mr. Baptiste.
I want to know who they is.
No, well,
I would answer the question, but I want them to talk. Because you said it, you know. But look, you can sneak and call Oliver. Say, I want to debate Mr. Batty. And if we don't want to go on the Oliver show, I want JP Morrell to be the host. Because guess what? One thing I like about him, and this ain't nothing towards nobody, you know, the media will say, oh, he called JP out and he trying to get JP to run for mayor. That ain't it. JP, what I like about you, you lose that law degree. When they come in here and lie, they can't lie to you. They can't lie to some of y'all. And Oliver, people got mad with you about cleaning the New Orleans East. Throw it away, Oliver. And if you need Noonan and the boys in the hood, we coming too.
Mr. Baptiste, any comments on the bike lanes? Well, that's why.
Listen, the bikers might run over me, but these bike lanes are going too far. You know what I'm saying? And some people might disagree with me. Listen, I'm all for safety with bike lanes. But guess what? They got too many, man. The man was driving on St. Bernard, old guy, about 70 years old. He didn't even know he was in the bike lane. These bike lanes are going too far. Now, I'm not saying the bike lanes, you know, we should have safety, but if it's left up to me, listen, some of these bike lanes are non-profits, and they're making the money, and I think we gotta stop them. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Baptiste, we're going to move on to, no, that's another topic. Miss Giselle Scheck-Snyder. Miss Giselle Scheck-Snyder. Ms. Scheck-Snyder, I'm going to give you 2 minutes. Go ahead, Ms. Scheck-Snyder, you can start.
Oh, I don't need 2 minutes. I was listening to the presentation that was just given. I would like to know how come no complaints have ever been heard since the redesign, the design adjustments were complete, because we are still at the same point, even though we recognize that some bollards have been taken away, but it doesn't change anything on the principle. I would like to know, I just mostly have questions. There is a much bigger traffic of bicycle riders on St. Charles Avenue. I don't see any protected bike lane. I don't understand how the bicycle riders are so upset that we as residents of MacArthur Boulevard are asking for the removal of the current design of bike lanes when obviously there's much more, many more arteries in the city that are unprotected, and I have not seen any data of accidents or anything. So I think that if there was any sense of priority in the matter, there are some arteries that are much more priority than MacArthur Boulevard. I don't know where the number of bicycle riders come from, because I live on MacArthur, I have my security cameras, and I see exactly how many riders every day are on MacArthur using them. And as for a comment that was made, oh yes, about informing the residents of the meetings going on about the bike lanes before the installation. I have never received any information at all about any meeting. I was totally unaware of it as a resident of MacArthur Boulevard. And if you remember, I know that Jennifer was there when at the...
Please, we're going to wrap up, Ms. Giselle.
Yes, when at the Alice Hart initial meeting, the first one we had with the residents of MacArthur, Christine Palmer publicly recognized that the communication had been a fail. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Giselle, where you live on MacArthur?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Ms. April Camadra. April. Governor Nichols. Oh, she's coming. I'm sorry for mispronouncing the last name.
Okay. I got hit on a bike, on a protected bike lane, but I won't talk about that one. I want to tell you about the other time I had a close call. I was coming home from work at 5, like everyone else on the road. I was in an unprotected bike lane on Esplanade when a car entered the unprotected bike lane to pass another car at full speed and came within inches of hitting me. That's when I decided that I cannot ride a bike anymore because I'm too old to be in traction for months. That same scenario happened in the exact same unprotected bike lane on Endymion Saturday in 2019 when 2 people were murdered. If a bike lane is unprotected, cars will go in it, whether intentionally or accidentally. Cyclists are not the only people who use protected bike lanes. Because of the horrific state of our sidewalks, people in mobility scooters and wheelchairs are forced into the streets. Protected bike lanes keep them safe. Parents pushing their children in strollers use protected bike lanes. Going backwards on bike lanes would not only put people's lives in danger, it would be embarrassing, to be honest. Hundreds of cities around the world are progressing towards more inclusive, safe infrastructure for vulnerable road users. My husband still rides his bike to work every day, and every day I am afraid for him. At this point, I'm sure city council members have people they know and love who ride a bike. Would you want them on a busy street with unprotected from a 1-ton moving machine? I resent the fact that vulnerable road users have to be believed by people who are not vulnerable road users. You don't have to live in Gordon Plaza to know that it is unsafe. We believe the people who live there. They are telling us. Even if you are not a vulnerable road user, you should believe the people who are. And, you know, I find it very victim blaming to talk about who was doing what and riding drunk the wrong way. The fact is the infrastructure is not there and people will improvise what they need to do to get home. So if the infrastructure is there, you might not have people riding the wrong way and in traffic.
Well, thank you, Ms. April. And just for clarification, this, the accident that I talked about happened on the State Street. And when asked DPW look into that street, I was told they had to contact the state. So this was a major street in Algiers that just happened at. We're talking about, and listen, Esplanade, I agree, it may need additional safety. But we're talking about 2 streets in Algiers, and you just stated you don't have to talk to, you believe the people in Garden Plaza because they tell you it's dangerous. I'm just asking you to believe the people who live and work in these areas.
I work there. I work over
No,
there.
I'm not talking about Esplanade. I'm talking about these.
No, I do work in Algiers.
On Newton Street?
I work over there. I
On
take
Newton
that
Street?
street
On
to get to
MacArthur?
work. Yes, on my bike.
Okay.
How is that so hard to believe? People who live in the city want to get around by bike everywhere.
Yes, ma'am.
It's not that hard to believe. I mean, I pay taxes for road expansions that I don't use, so that's part of it too.
Yes, ma'am. All right, we have next Miss Stetson. On Bristol? Miss Stetson.
Hi, I'm Amanda Stenson, and I live on Bristol Place in Algiers, and it is basically in between MacArthur and General Meyer.
Please speak into the mic.
It's between MacArthur and General Meyer. I drive on the roads every day. My point that I want to make is I think it's disingenuous for PW to say that there's no complaints. I have a timer and I have a to-do list, and my husband and I complain weekly. Maybe I'm not complaining in the right place. Maybe PW's not getting them, but there are complaints being made about the bike lanes and the lack of utility. It's disingenuous to suggest that people that live in Algiers that want to have a say in what's going on with our streets and how our commute and how our roads are going to be, that we're against bike lanes or that we're haters. We want to have a say. We want this to be something that works for our community. You know, it's disingenuous for PW to say that we're being responsive to the community. I was there at a meeting, and the attitude seems to be that, what was the statement? We find that when we make changes, we have to wait a while and people get used to it and stop complaining. So basically, you're going to ignore us until we go away. So have people stopped complaining because they don't think they're going to get any voice or anybody's listening to their complaints or going to do anything about them? So I've requested information. I know other people have too. There was on what the statistics are, what the changes are, what's the comparison. Like you brought up, this was then. We have the initial statistics saying that there were maybe 8 bicyclists a day compared to 30,000 cars. I haven't seen any improvement on those numbers. Those numbers were pulled out in the middle of COVID. So I know they've gone up.
Please begin to wrap up.
Yeah, we see accidents out there daily. Are they not being reported because of the situation with the police? I don't know. But I don't believe that the numbers, the traffic incidents have gone down at all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have Mr. Charles Thompson. Mr. Charles Thompson. New Orleans Ghost Bikes, Charles Thompson. All right. We have Miss Naomi Jones. Miss Jones.
Morning, y'all. My name is Naomi Jones. I live in deep Algiers in Aurora, and I use the bike lanes regularly, especially the MacArthur bike lane and the other ones. And I yesterday went around the neighborhood and canvassed the bike lanes and went into the cutoff. And I spoke to between 30 and 40 people this weekend. And only one of them knew that this was happening, which is kind of funny given that the...
Yes, sure.
I'm sorry? Given that the reason that this all started was because people complained that there was no notification. I want to talk about the environment, and I want to talk about equity today. First off, we are sinking into the Gulf of Mexico in a time of unprecedented natural disasters brought on by climate change. And any little thing we can do is something we should do to slow that down. Bicycles are a weapon against climate change. Secondly, equity. Car insurance on average in New Orleans is over $3,700 per year. It takes somebody working minimum wage at a place in something like Algiers Plaza over 3 months just to pay for car insurance. There are a whole lot of people in Algiers who can't afford cars. And it doesn't matter whether that's 25% of the population or 2.5% of the population, because it's my understanding that this city council values the life of one bicyclist more than 99 parking spots. The second you let a neighborhood decide how people travel through it, you let a neighborhood decide who gets to travel through it. Every single citizen of Algiers, and in fact of this country, has equal rights to every single square foot of public roadway. Algiers is not an exception
Please, we're gonna
to
wrap
that
up.
truth. I'm just asking that you consider the people who use the bike lanes. These ladies just gave you numbers, over 100 a day. And pretending you don't see poor people doesn't make them go away. Pretending you don't see bicyclists doesn't mean we're not there. Thank you.
Thank you. Miss Laspina on Bike Easy, Pine Street.
Hello, my name is Aline Laspina. I'm here on behalf of Bike Easy and also as an avid bike commuter. I do not own a car and use my bike as my main means of transportation, as many folks in New Orleans do. We simply cannot afford to have a car. On any day, I easily commute between more than one district, and I want you to really sit on that. Today, we're focusing on the lanes in District C, but I want every council member here today to consider how these will affect every single district. We're talking about protected bike lanes. Emphasize on protected. Lanes that make it safe for folks of all ages and abilities to go from one place to another. Somebody mentioned this earlier, it's not only people on bikes that are using these lanes. One death caused by not having a protected bike lane is one death too many. Doesn't matter what district you're from. I also want to remind the council members that the bike lanes in Algiers are part of a bigger network. It connects and allows accessibility for folks from their homes, the jobs, healthcare, service, shopping, and schools. Really consider the precedent that we're setting here today. And I also want to state that as a nonprofit, we did a lot of outreach before these bike lanes were constructed, and I'm happy to provide the information for that. Thank you.
Thank you. So this is not about bike lanes in other parts of the city, other parts of the district, other parts of Algiers. We're talking about, I want to make sure everyone understands we're talking about 2 streets. I can't control what happens with constituents in the east, mid-city, uptown. That's between them and their council members. This is about 2 streets in Algiers. Let's try to keep the comments about that and not mislead the public. Chris Parker. And while he's coming up, DBW, do you have any stats on the amount of hits and or fatalities on MacArthur prior to the protected bike? There were always bike lanes, they've been for a while, but prior to the protected bike lanes, were there accidents on that street?
If you look at the fact sheets on our website, there's some data there.
Do you know if
those
offhand?
prior to, yes, there are.
Do you know how many?
We can pull those up, and then after Mr. Parker, we can share them.
Thank you.
Councilmember King, it is not about 2 streets. Your very next agenda item says banning all future protected bike lanes in Algiers. That makes it every potential...
That's been amended.
Oh, has it?
Yes.
Okay. Going from there, you also say that they're using poor data. If you want the limited data we have for MacArthur and Newton, look at the police call data set on explore.gov.nola. It shows that accidents with injury, the ones where people are hurt, not a car, have gone down by half on MacArthur and by 25% on Newton. Voting to go back is you voting to injure those people who are not being injured now. It is literally saying, yes, we have some data that shows injuries are down, and we're going to go backwards to putting the injuries right back up. It's a bad call. Councilmember Morel, when we met, you said your primary objection to the bike lanes was poor outreach. I have watched time and again as members have tried to get Councilmember King to talk to bike advocates, and he has not met with them publicly.
Like who?
Brad Ott was banned from a neighborhood association meeting where you were attending.
Okay, whoa.
In your presence.
I wasn't a leader. No, you're not going to sit here and lie to the public.
I am done.
You're not going to sit here and lie to the public.
Nope. I'm not lying.
Yes, you are. You are lying.
No.
I was present at that meeting. I didn't conduct the meeting. I was an invitee to the neighborhood of Aurora West. Huntley Village. I didn't throw him out. He was disruptive, and I just stepped up and I listened.
When he was ejected.
Mr. Brad Ott has never been excused in a meeting in my...
No, he was barred from entry to the building.
So what has to do with me?
He also reached out to you about that. I know because I have a copy of the email he sent.
Okay.
I also have a copy.
So he was put out of a meeting, and that's my fault. Barred from entering, that's my fault.
You have... Let me finish. If you're going to talk, you talk. If I'm going to talk, you let me talk.
Please wrap up your comments.
You were asked to meet with the Algiers Street Rider, a group of over 200 people, most of whom live in Algiers. They've been asking you repeatedly for 6 months, and you haven't made the time for them. As Naomi pointed out, you haven't reached out to the people in Cutoff.
That's not true.
You have done a poor job in
I have
reaching out
family
to
that live in
anyone
Cutoff.
who
I
does
reached
not
out to the
agree
members
with
of the
you.
Cutoff. That's not true. I have family that lives in Cutoff. I reached out to them. They're not in favor of the bike lanes. Next. That's it. Mr. Carpenter. Mr. Carpenter, you're up.
Voting to go back when you know the data shows injuries is voting to hurt people.
Thank you.
So that first name is Simeon. But my name is Simeon Carpenter. I am exclusively a cyclist. I sold my car 7 years ago. I was able to do that because of the city that I love. I've been hit 3 times. Every time it was on a street that did not have a bike lane at all. I know bike lanes protect people. I also have a small business that I travel with a bike exclusively in a bike trailer. Many unfounded and some objectively false claims have been made about infrastructure in Algiers. We cannot make policy based on anecdotal evidence. The plural of anecdotes is not data. What little data we do have through the police call log, as Chris was saying, shows that injury is down by half on MacArthur and a quarter on Newton. That saves lives. We're not talking about saving cars. We're talking about people. Roads are made for people, not cars. They're made for people, regardless of whether you're in a scooter, on a mobility device, walking with your kids, on a bike. Councilmember King has been informed of this, and so have members of the Our Streets Coalition, who are definitely represented here. They have chosen to continue to repeat the lie that design is unsafe. Publicly available data shows that the streets are safer. Councilmember Harris, Our Streets and King, who have supported them, have repeatedly claimed not to oppose bike lanes and to only speak for Algiers. This is a lie given away by their attack on widely canvassed and supported bike lanes along Gentilly and Martin Luther King. They hypocritically claim no one outside Algiers should have a voice in a city-wide infrastructure project. This affects all of us, not just Algiers. If they don't live next to it but have attacked bike lanes, they don't live next to you. Please vote with the data and protect us, the residents.
Please wrap up your comments. Please begin to wrap up. Not stop, but just begin to come to a close.
Okay, sorry. Pollution is destroying our planet and our community. The Gordon Plaza community, who was here, knows this better than anybody. We need infrastructure to reduce pollution, and bikes do that. Facilitating pollution, cars, puts blood on your hands. My last remark, does anyone think it's a good idea to waste the time of the Department of Public Works on removing a bike lane? We all know there are so many other things that could be fixed on the streets of the city.
Thank you.
We all know of roads and potholes that need to be repaired.
Thank you, Mr.
And
Carpenter.
we don't have the resources to do even that.
I don't tend to disagree. I don't think it's a good idea.
Why haven't they been fixed if we have those resources?
I don't think it's a good idea to expand the bike lanes when the person who got paid to do it said this is a dumb idea to begin with. Next
Talk about
is
removing bike lanes, though.
Next is Mr. Aaron Mishler.
Hi, my name's Aaron Mishler. I'm the president of New Orleans Firefighters Association. I've heard a lot of comments so far today, a lot of, I agree with the last guy, a lot of mistruths thrown around, some data being mentioned, people saying that they spoke to fire department personnel. I don't know exactly who they spoke to because I speak to them every day. I'm part of the New Orleans Fire Department. I'm also a resident of MacArthur Boulevard. I live in the 5400 block of MacArthur Boulevard. I was the first to raise the concerns about our emergency vehicles being able to make the turns on these streets, which still to this day, I don't know what bollards have been removed at these intersections or parking restrictions put at these intersections, because at my intersection right past Eaton, I can't make that turn, that U-turn in my personal vehicle. I drive a pickup truck. I can't make that turn myself without backing up and going forward. So none of these things that they talked about are true. As far as the fire department goes, not just our emergency vehicles are unable to operate on these lanes, putting MacArthur down to one lane with a dedicated bike lane, changing it from the way it used to be, brings MacArthur down to one lane. When they're cutting the grass on that street, it's inoperable. When the parents of children at St. Andrew the Apostle or Alice Hart School line up to pick their children up, it blocks that one viable lane for people to move. the intersection of Holiday and MacArthur Boulevard. I don't know where this data shows. They keep mentioning that cars don't matter, only people matter. The accidents at that intersection, since these protected bike lanes, have gone up, not down. There's accidents there almost every day.
Please begin to wrap up your comment.
I'm going to ask for a little latitude just to go into the specifics of emergency response
I'll give you 30 extra seconds. Go ahead.
with the fire department. Our equipment on these emergency vehicles are designed to make interior attacks on buildings, and they're designed with the way buildings are and with the way the streets are designed across the country. Adding a designated bike lane and the fire department vehicles having to be parked 10 to 15 feet further out. Our hose lines are designated at 150 and 200 feet. Adding an extra 10 to 15 feet inhibits our ability to get that hose to certain spots of the building. We have to add an extra hose line. That takes time. When you have to respond to a fire and have to go 3 to 4 extra blocks to make a turn, that takes time. We work in a business that time is of the essence. Every second counts. A fire doubles in size every 30 seconds. Adding 2 minutes to our response or adding an extra 3 minutes to add an extra hose line takes time. That 1.1 million that they were talking about, I don't know where those numbers came from, but with how much it costs to rebuild a house that's been destroyed by a fire because we couldn't get there in time, or the life that is lost because we couldn't get there in time, is worth more than $1.1 million. Thank you.
Hang
One
on,
question,
Aaron.
Mr. Miller.
I have a question.
Yes.
Thank you for being with us, Mr. Mishler. Was the fire department notified that there would be a bike lane put at the vicinity of the fire station?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Okay. When was the bike lane placed there? 2 years ago, roughly? Do you have a date?
2020. Summer
Yeah, a year and a half maybe.
2021.
In 2021, do you remember the month?
We're talking about MacArthur here, right? Mm-hmm. The fire station is not on MacArthur.
That's on Woodland.
Okay, the Woodland one.
We didn't put anything on Woodland.
What I think he's saying is the response.
In order to respond from Woodland or General Meyer.
So the response time would be slowed down because making a turn. What he's saying. Yeah.
Yeah, MacArthur. When was MacArthur put in place?
Is 2021.
In 2021, do you remember the month?
Like summer,
Summer.
late May.
Got it. So when you started hearing that there were potential implications to the fire station, not on MacArthur, but that it had implications on the specific fire station, how did you all respond to try to alleviate this issue immediately? Because this is an emergency response type of significant situation.
Right. So what we do in the design process is we look at turning vehicles. We look at a certain radius of a school bus or those kind of things in order to make sure that we're making that space available for those kind of changes. And we've made all kinds of changes on not just these projects, but other projects because of those reasons. So we took a look at that again just to make sure that I think the main issue was some T intersections where you have a roadway coming into where if a fire truck had to get through the T intersection, it would have been a little bit difficult to turn, make that maneuver. I would add that.
So were changes made?
We made changes to, yes, we removed some of those, we pulled them off, made a little bit more room for those kind of turns, those maneuvers. And the other thing to remember is that there are no curbs.
And when were those changes made? When were those changes made?
Those were made in, let me see here, 2021, 22. I think it was several months after the installation, so I can't remember.
It was before the end of 2021.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so
fall
end of
2021. We issued a memo stating the kind of changes we were going to be making, and we said that the changes would begin in fall 2021.
Begin or end?
they would begin in fall 2021.
When were they complete?
I believe they were completed toward the end of that year.
End of 21 complete, got it.
And something just to be clear, a flex post, if an emergency vehicle has to run over a flex post, they can. It doesn't really impede their.
I run over them in my
It's not like
pickup
hitting
truck, but
a
I
parked
can't
car.
run over the car that parks right
So-
in that parking spot at the end of my block.
So since the end of 2021, have there been any changes beyond that?
To the intersections, like for large
To
vehicles.
alleviate still ongoing concerns from the fire department?
As I stated, we contacted the deputy for planning at the fire department and discussed these changes with him, let him know we were going to make these adjustments, and we were told, and I believe the fire chief also was part of that conversation, and we were told they had no further concerns for us. They felt that we were addressing their concerns.
Are the concerns still ongoing, Mr. Mishler?
Yes.
And you're still having vehicles delayed in their response due to the MacArthur bike lanes?
Yes.
Okay, so, based on that particular information, is there a possibility of urgently looking at an alternate route? What are you doing to look at that?
I mean, I think we can have some additional discussions with the leadership over at the New Orleans Fire Department just to see. I mean, we have had responses from them saying that they're satisfied with the changes that we've made. We're hearing something different today, so we're certainly happy to look into that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I know that Councilmember King's been talking to you all for quite some time, talking to the city about the potential problems with the MacArthur bike lanes, and I know myself and Councilmember Morrell have certainly heard many concerns from all the different neighborhoods throughout Algiers who've contacted us, and we've even had meetings with residents as well about this. So based on all of this input, now you have input coming in from emergency personnel. You have a lot of input coming in from very concerned neighbors. At what point do you all say maybe this bike lane where it's at is not working, and we need to potentially find a different location for a bike lane where it's a more workable option? And I'm asking this question because this is actually what I'm hearing throughout the city, that it's not that people are against having bike lanes, it's about where exactly the bike lanes have been put.
I know we didn't put up the slides that sort of rehash the community engagement process, but I do want to refer back to it, and all of the information is out there on the NOLA.gov transportation page. We did a really extensive community engagement process around the locations for the bike lanes across the city.
I was on MacArthur. I was never
That is
engaged.
not what happened. I mean, and I was here last term where it was, my goodness, we had to go through the whole situation with the Barone bike lane, which, is now no more.
That was a
It was a pilot. I get it, but the amount of complaints that we got of that particular bike lane was really enormous. Where it was, that was a potential bike lane that could have gone someplace else downtown on a much wider street that probably would have been more feasible. So I guess my point is, we want people to be able to navigate through the city safely on their bicycles. No doubt about that. But I think what this council is saying and what the people of the city are saying is that some of the areas where bike lanes have been placed may not be the necessary appropriate places for those bike lanes to be. So what is the review process based on all of the feedback that you're receiving from many locations to potentially find new routes for bike lanes to replace the very problematic routes?
So we developed a bikeway blueprint for the city, citywide, where bike facilities would go, how the bikeway network would connect, what types of facilities would go in. And that was developed in 2019 going into 2022, or sorry, 2020. And that consisted of 11 meetings. Some of these were citywide, some of these were specifically in all of the districts had meetings. I attended every single one of those.
I just want to tell you that 11 meetings is nowhere near sufficient. I can tell you that for the outdoor live music entertainment motion that I had, my chief of staff had 11 meetings in 1 week for one motion. I mean, so 11 meetings for a whole, spread of new infrastructure bike projects across the city is certainly not sufficient.
So that bikeway blueprint is guiding all of our decisions around where we put facilities. So I would say that if there's interest in re-looking at that bikeway blueprint to say, we want to reevaluate or something to that effect. There was a lot of data that went into the bikeway blueprint, and we listened to people's feedback. We had mapping processes, all kinds of things where people could provide input. So I would say that that is the guidepost we're using in order to make decisions about where things go. And I guess that at this stage, going one by one street by street, is not the most productive way to make those decisions. It's looking at the network as a whole.
Councilmember Morrow.
Thank you. I know Mr. Parker alluded to my comment, and I'll elaborate on that. What is the bike plan for Gentilly?
That I have no control.
No, I'm asking y'all, because let me tell you my frustration. Before I was elected, I am an engaged voter. I'm someone who, when I see meetings, I go to said meetings. And one of the things that really disturbed me about the city bike plan is not that there is a bike plan, it's that when I am told repeatedly, there's meetings, there's engagement, I'm the kind of person that when I am told that something's going to occur, I get engaged. And I can tell you, I live in District D in Councilmember Green's district, and I speak as a District D resident. I had zero engagement. But I'm well aware now as a councilman, there's a plan for District D, but I don't know anything about it. And for people to say, well, we took feedback, from who? And I say this because with NOLA ready and the tools available from this city, my biggest frustration, which Mr. Parker alluded to, but I will give elaboration. If the city of New Orleans wants to engage voters, you can do it. You have the tools, you have the technology, you have the people. If there is going to be an engagement in Gentilly, District D, District B, wherever, on a bike plan, if you want residents to get engaged, you could do your mass texts, you can do your mass emails, you can do all the things you do when you want citizens engaged. When it came to these bike lanes, you didn't do any of that. What happened was you took individuals who are passionate about this bike lanes, and I don't begrudge you that, but you put on them that they had to do the engagement. And that is ridiculous, because they did the best they could, but the city didn't do squat. They did the engagement. And if you're gonna have the city spend millions of dollars to do road work, because bike lanes are road work, the city cannot pass the buck on engagement. That's ridiculous. And when I was in Algiers, both during the campaign and afterwards, what I heard from residents constantly was, I believe that every effort was made by proponents of bike lanes to do engagement the best they were able. But the reality is there's only so many of them, and road work has implications for people far beyond those people directly adjacent to the bike lanes. As you mentioned, Aaron, previously, you have a school there. You have two schools on MacArthur. When you're doing your data crunch, are you looking at their schools there and how that's going to impact traffic? Because obviously you didn't. But as you engage the people in Algiers about a bike lane on a street, and the residents who go to that school would have said, hey, you know that during school hours, during 9 months out the year, this is going to be a complete show. Insert the line there. If you engage people and actually get feedback from the people that both on bikes and not on bikes on what the usage is, you can reach compromise. But what I will tell you, and what is evident, at least from Algiers and talking to residents, is everyone didn't have the opportunity to come to the table. And I think it's very telling that whether you like Mr. King's proposal today or not, he's not removing all the bike lanes in Algiers. He's targeting the two areas in which the people who utilize those streets have said, we want to revisit this.
Thank you.
And on top of that, What I will tell you, which is also very telling, and I mean no disrespect to the fire chief, you need to contact the firemen in the firehouses where the bike lanes are going, not the chief of the fire department. Because I will tell you, and this goes towards something that might be on the ballot this fall, if you have a politician who has made something a priority, all of their appointees are going to go along with it. So if you really want an idea of how something's going to impact first responders, go to the police districts and the fire districts where the bike lanes are going to be located to ask them, does this work for you? Because the chief over here on the East Bank isn't going to know what the firemen on the West Bank are going through. Thank you.
And to add to that, we're not against bike lanes. My wife and I, we've lived on MacArthur Boulevard for 22 years. We're avid bike riders. We use the bike lanes the way they were. They were never a problem. But now, since the protected bike lanes have come in, it's made everything a problem. The trash and the natural runoff from storms goes to the curbside, and that hinders bikes from moving. It's just a bad design. So that's what we're discussing. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Eric Gordon. I believe we have one person after Mr. Gordon.
Thank you, Council. Algiers is unique. We are bordered on the west, the north, and the east side by the river. It's shaped like a bean. We only have 3 avenues that go from east to west that bring in, that ambulances can use, fire engines can use, police can use. You've got General de Gaulle, which is pretty much on the southern edge. You got General Meyer, which is only a quarter mile from the levee. But then you got General MacArthur, right through the middle. Now that middle lane for response is gone. So now we've cut down, what, a third? And that being a more important lane, mathematically it'd be a third, but in actuality, it's more important than that because you can go left or right from that to get to fires, to get to people with heart attacks. Now we've heard that a few minutes make a big difference in a fire. Well, they certainly make a big difference in a stroke or a heart attack or anything like it. Now we have heard that the city didn't really think about the fire engines being able to make turns. Then we end up with this horrible design. And we look at this design and we say, why is it so horrible? Well, because we didn't even think about fire engines going down the street. Okay, if you didn't think about fire engines, you know the design's going to be horrible. And I mean horrible. So what we have to do is we have to be smarter. There's Berkeley Drive, which runs parallel to MacArthur. It's a nice, pretty street right there from Woodland to Cable. It's a very slow street. What did the city do? They picked a faster, needed boulevard, then talked about slowing down a speed limit, and then shut off a lane. Why don't you just use Berkeley? Give Woodland. They're talking about putting a bike lane on Woodland. You've got Westchester 1 block to the east. 1 block. Westchester's a horrible street. You can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. You can redo the street and put a bike lane on it, and guess what? All it is residential. You ride a bike residentially, you're not going to get ran over. Didn't your parents tell you don't go play in traffic, right? Now these people are telling their kids, hey, we built a bike lane, go play in traffic. This is insanity. This is purely insane. I've ridden a bike. I've lived in Algiers all my life. I've ridden a bike all through Algiers.
Please, we're going to wrap up, Mr. Gordon.
Yes, sir. Never had a problem. And the bike lane, the lanes of traffic are shared by bikes. It's in the law. They're already shared. When they talk about shared lane, they're talking about taking a lane. Well, clearly that puts everybody in jeopardy. And when we're talking about lives, we're talking about lives.
Thank you. Last comment, Ms. Howard. Is it for Derek? Ms. Howard, on behalf of the Whitney United Business of Newton. Oh, here. I'm sorry, I didn't get the first name, Ms. Howard. I do apologize. For Deidre. Should have known that.
Good afternoon, council members.
Good afternoon.
I'm here on behalf of Mrs. Patricia Tombar, her assistant, in representing the United Business on Newton Street. It says, Dear Councilman King and Council, we the United Businesses on Newton would like to express our view regarding bike lanes on Newton. Our position was presented to our former councilwoman and we are now suffering the effects of this matter being ignored and not effectively addressed. The following is offered for your review. We were not invited or involved in any decision-making options prior to the lanes being installed in front of our buildings. This is despite the fact that we are all minority businesses, tax-paying and law-abiding citizens. We are all experiencing setbacks to our already income since COVID-19. While attempting to recover, we are losing customers due to limited parking. The bike lanes are constructed, places undue burdens on us, and forces us to compete for an already limited space available for parking. Our delivery trucks are forced to block the streets and service us from the streets. Due to the limited space when attempting to cross the street, while vans, trucks are in parking lanes, they are very low visibility and many constituents' lives are jeopardized. We have seen many accidents and, due to people speeding. Senior citizens and children are forced to get directly out of their cars into the driving lanes. This is a real dangerous situation. For all of the above reasons, we need the bike lanes removed immediately. We can be contacted individually or through our representative, who is Mrs. Patricia B. Tumbar. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. DPW, any last words?
Would you like us to review some of the safety data?
Yes, please.
Okay, so here's the detail on MacArthur Boulevard, and again, this is the snapshot from 2014 to 2018. A total of 327 crashes were recorded on MacArthur Boulevard over a 5-year period, resulting in 1 fatality and the injury of 274 people. Most crashes occurred on Holiday Drive, 123, followed by General de Gaulle Drive, 44, and Cable Drive, 29. There were 5 crashes involving pedestrians, 1 of which resulted in a fatality, and 6 crashes involving bicyclists.
Thank you.
On Newton Street, same snapshot, 2014 to 2018. A total of 142 crashes were recorded on Newton Street over the 5-year period, resulting in the injury of 96 people. Most crashes involving injuries occurred on L.B. Landry Avenue, 55, followed by Berman Avenue, 34, and Sumner Street, 10. There were 7 crashes involving pedestrians and 2 crashes involving bicyclists. And all of this information is also available on the NOLA.gov transportation.
Right. So on Newton, you said it was 5 years, 2 bikes, and again, 5 pedestrians, and no telling. It's not victim shaming, just getting information. No
Yes.
information on who caused the accident, who's at fault.
We don't have that information, but we're certainly happy to get that.
All right, thank you. So a couple things before I wrap up so we get on to our next meeting. I want to make this very clear. If we can get our media, I see Mr. J.D. Career. Mr. J.D. Career is over there. He doesn't hear me. Mr. J.D. Career. J.D. Thank you. All right. Mr. Matt Slash, we made this very clear. I'm not against bike lanes or protected bike lanes, so please get this and quote me on this. But bike lanes aren't the same in every neighborhood, and I think this is evident of that. What works for Uptown, the Esplanade, and Mid-City, and Gentilly does not work for every neighborhood. And it's very clear from the people in Algiers that they were not consulted moving forward with this program in the beginning or currently consulted. So we just ask that you go back to the drawing board and talk to the people in Algiers who are mostly affected by this. You say you did. People said they weren't consulted. So next Wednesday, we're going to have a meeting at Alice Hart at 5:30. So you can talk to the people directly. If you gotta show up, please, that's great. If not, we'll be there letting you know what they feel about the bike lanes in their neighborhood that mostly affects them. We're not talking about bike lanes on Esplanade, St. Claude, anywhere else in the city. We're talking about 2.2 stretches of miles in Algiers. not even all the bike lanes in Algiers. It's kind of silly talking about this and people say don't do it, and it still gets done. But what DPW can do and help us, since we're talking about safety, on General Meyer, there are 3 schools, and there are no street lights. We're talking about in front of Carr, in front of Berman, well, flashing lights. Berman, which is now the old Perry Walker, and Harriet Tubman. They can use some flashing street lights to let people know that it's a school zone. They may be by the old Walker. I know, but for sure that's not by Carr. There's no sidewalks by Carr. So we have kids walking in and out of traffic with no sidewalks or any flashing street lights. On St. Claude, in front of one of the KIPP schools, not that far off of Legion Fields, they contacted our office asking for flashing lights. So we're asking for DPW to do something that we all need, opposed to something that isn't wanted or desired. So if we can get that done, that'd be great. And my last thing is, again, not against bike lanes, just want to make sure it fits the neighborhood that they're being placed in, and it doesn't seem like it fits this neighborhood. So I know people are still going to talk about other neighborhoods to make their point. I'm talking about this particular stretch of land, a stretch of highway. We do have several comments, public comments online. Since we're not going to vote today, we're going to just keep those for the record. We will vote on this the next council meeting on the 15th. But please do come to the meeting at Alice Hart next Wednesday at 5:30. Need me to push it to 6 o'clock? That's fine. But hear from the people that tell you how they feel about what goes on in their neighborhood. That being it, I ask for a move to.
Councilmember, can I just make a couple?
Sure.
Just on General Meyer, I just do want to mention that is a state highway, but we will certainly work with DOTD on that.
Great. Last thing. Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
That's okay.
I'm sorry. Let you finish.
The other thing, a couple comments I wanted to make. These designs, I understand what you're saying, but these designs were not made in a vacuum. We did have a number of meetings over in Algiers. Obviously, we needed to have more, but they were informed by residents and people who attended those meetings in Algiers.
Can we get that sign-in list?
Yes, I'm going to work on getting that. I also want to mention our engagement. So it was augmented by the New Orleans Complete Streets Coalition, but the onus was not on the New Orleans Complete Streets Coalition to do that, just in response to something that Councilmember Morell said. So I just wanted to make that point. We agree, we acknowledge, and we've learned lessons about the communication, and that is in part why we brought on an outreach manager for the Mobility and Safety Division. And we certainly, going forward, not just in Algiers, but as we continue with our bike network expansion, we certainly request and will need the council's support in continuing to push out information. Unrelated, but just we had a pre-construction meeting recently we've had 2 pre-construction meetings in the past week, for which we've pushed out information about those meetings via text message that Councilmember Morell mentioned, and all of the other regular ways we do that on the website. And we've had 1 attendee at one meeting and 8 attendee at another meeting. So we need all the help we can get from the council in terms of getting information about how people can continue to engage and participate.
Okay. Thank you. And lastly, talking about public safety, this is on DeGaulle, which is a state highway. DeGaulle and Wall, I made this comment several times. There are several crashes weekly on DeGaulle and Wall Boulevard. There needs to be some type of study on how to make that safer, because it happens all the time, and there are a lot of fatalities there.
You said at Holiday?
No. DeGaulle and Wall.
DeGaulle and Wall, okay.
So, one real quick, Chuck. I'm trying to play this real quick. It's not. It's like on. I can't get it up, but Don't sweat it. Don't worry about it. Because the audio isn't working. All right, I'll see y'all next week. Thank you. I'll make a motion to adjourn. Second, Councilman Caruso. All in favor? Aye. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.